Welcome to this lesson on managing discipline in the workplace. This is one of the most challenging aspects of the human resources management role, and one that management in general have problems with. So let's explore what is involved in this activity. One of the first challenges any manager will face is the need to maintain control over the work of the team and their interactions with others, inside and outside the organization. Often managers will face challenges to their authority and breaches of the norms, policies and conventions of the organization, and these will require intervention. This intervention is where and when the application of discipline comes into play. In this unit, we will look at the basic ideas involved in discipline at work. In an ideal world, employees would come to work on time, every day, complete their tasks on time and to the standards required, and would comply with all the procedural, behavioral and social norms required by the organization of its workforce. Of course, none of us have such good fortune. Economic circumstances, continuous change, human nature and interpersonal dynamics come into play, and help create tensions and potentially conflict within the workplace, which will require management. Furthermore, the work environment is regulated by employment legislation, to both protect employees' rights, and to ensure that the organization can function effectively. Necessarily, organizations need to be aware of, and comply with such legislation, and to ensure that their managers and employees are familiar with the policies, procedures and protocols, which constrain and limit their behavior in the workplace. So, as manager, your role in managing discipline will involve managing the work environment to help prevent conflict and breaches of discipline protocols, dealing with such breaches when they do occur, and liaising with human resources and other departments, to ensure you comply with organizational policies and legislative requirements. Discipline in the workplace is the means by which supervisory personnel correct behavioral deficiencies, and ensure adherence to established company rules. The purpose of discipline is correct behavior. It is not designed to punish or embarrass an employee. Discipline can be manifest in both the actions of the employer and the actions of the employee. Individuals who are self-disciplined are not only successful professionally, but also in their personal lives. Employees who apply self-discipline are generally liked and appreciated by not only their superiors, but also other fellow workers. As Brian Tracy says, the ability to discipline yourself to delay gratification in the short term, in order to enjoy greater rewards in the long term, is the indispensable prerequisite for success. Managing discipline ensures individuals behave in an acceptable way at the workplace, and also adhere to the rules and regulations of the organization. Undisciplined workplaces are often unproductive, and unhappy places to be. However, work environments in which employees are not free to express their ideas, suggest improvements, take initiatives, and make decisions are often perceived as unattractive, and may experience high turnover rates and a generally demotivated workforce. Hence, in approaching the application of discipline in the workplace, organizations need to reach a balance between control and creativity, between autonomy and intervention. So when does a manager need to apply discipline in the workplace? Generally speaking, we think of the need to apply discipline when an employee has broken regulations, also known as misconduct, or when employees have not complied with the terms of their contract, work standards and performance, or when a team is in conflict, and there are risks of harm to individuals or the organization, its reputation and its property. Examples of misconducts which could result in discipline include excessive tardiness, failure to notify of an absence, insubordination, threatening behavior, rude or abusive language in the workplace, failure to follow policies and regulations, that is, not wearing safety equipment, not following correct cash handling procedures, for example, dishonesty, and theft. So, based on these examples of misconduct, the purpose of applying disciplinary processes and actions can include ensuring conformance to rules, correcting behavior that doesn't conform to the rules, reasserting authority, punishing wrongdoing, and maintaining a safe work environment. These aims will vary according to the organization, the needs of the business, and the particular circumstances of someone's behavior. The need for, and the nature of the application of disciplinary actions, will depend on the nature of the organization. Organizations in which life can be at risk, will need high levels of self-discipline and disciplinary procedures to ensure compliance with regulations and the prevention of injury or loss of life. Such organizations might include offshore oil rigs, police forces, or the military. Many organizations will on the other hand require more collaborative work environments, in which decision-making is more democratic, and discipline maintained by norms and shared standards of behavior. Such organizations can include universities, research centers, and IT companies. Regardless of the context, all these organizations require disciplinary policies and procedures. Your approach to discipline may also be influenced by your assumptions about people's motivations and your approach to management. Let's look at some theory which can help explain differences in approach. In the 1960s, social psychologist Douglas McGregor of MIT expounded two contrasting theories on human motivation and management: the X theory and the Y theory. The theories look at how a manager's perceptions of what motivates his or her team members affects the way he or she behaves. By understanding how your assumptions about employees' motivation can influence your management style, you can adapt your approach appropriately, and so manage people more effectively. Let's look then at the differences between the two. Theory X assumes that employees are naturally unmotivated and dislike working, and this encourages an authoritarian style of management. According to this view, management must actively intervene to get things done. This style of management assumes that workers dislike working, avoid responsibility and need to be directed. It also assumes that workers have to be controlled, forced, and threatened to deliver what's needed, and that they need to be supervised at every step, with controls put in place. Finally, Theory X assumes that workers need to be enticed to produce results. Otherwise they have no ambition or incentive to work. X-type organizations tend to be top-heavy, with managers and supervisors required at every step to control workers. In X-type organizations, there is little delegation of authority, and control remains firmly centralized. McGregor recognized that X-type workers are in fact usually the minority. Yet in mass production organizations, X-theory management may be required, and can be unavoidable. Theory Y expounds a participative style of management. It assumes that employees are happy to work, are self-motivated and creative, and enjoy working with greater responsibility. It assumes that workers take responsibility and are motivated to fulfill the goals they are given. That they seek and accept responsibility and do not need much direction. That they consider work as a natural part of life, and solve work problems imaginatively. Theory Y is a more participative management style. In Y-type organizations, people at lower levels of the organization are involved in decision-making, and have more responsibility. This slide illustrates the principal differences between the two theories. Look through these and let's consider whether we can apply them to your organization. Theory X assumes that people dislike work, they want to avoid it and do not want to take responsibility. Theory Y assumes that people are self-motivated, and thrive on responsibility. In a Theory X organization, management is authoritarian, and centralized control is retained. In Theory Y, the management style is participative. Management involves employees and decision-making, but retains power to implement decisions. Theory X employees tend to have specialized and often repetitive work. In Theory Y, the work tends to be organized around wider areas of skill or knowledge. Employees are also encouraged to develop expertise and make suggestions and improvements. Another key difference relates to rewards and appraisals. Theory X organizations work on a carrot and stick basis, and performance appraisal is part of the overall mechanisms of control and remuneration. In Theory Y organizations, appraisal is also regular and important, but is usually a separate mechanism from organizational controls. Theory Y organizations also give employees frequent opportunities for promotion. Although Theory X management style is widely accepted as inferior to others, it has its place in large-scale production operations, and unskilled production line work. Many of the principles of Theory Y are widely adopted by types of organization that value and encourage participation. Theory Y style management is suited to knowledge work and professional services. Professional service organizations naturally evolve Theory Y type practices by the nature of their work. Even highly structured knowledge work, such as call center operations, can benefit from theory-wide principles to encourage knowledge sharing and continuous improvement. Your management style is strongly influenced by your beliefs and assumptions about what motivates members of your team. If you believe that team members dislike work, you will tend towards an authoritarian style of management. On the other hand, if you assume that employees take pride in doing a good job, you will tend to adopt a more participative style. So what are the consequences if we do not have appropriate disciplinary policies, procedures and practices in place in the workplace? First, undermined authority. Lack of discipline can lead to the undermining of managerial authority, with resultant low individual and team effectiveness. Second, lack of respect for management. Failure to discipline inappropriate behavior can cause other employees to lose respect for their managers. Additionally, lower productivity. Lack of respect can lead to lower individual and team productivity. Next, conflict. Lack of discipline can lead to conflict between employees and others inside and outside the organization. Morale can also be affected. Conflict and loss of respect will lead to lower employee morale, and likely contribute to a higher employee turnover, and increased recruitment costs. Next, legal consequences. Failure to deal with disciplinary issues promptly and effectively can lead to serious legal consequences for the organization. And finally, safety risks. Failure to instill discipline and compliance can put lives at risk. So, what does disciplinary action involve? While every organization will have its own rules on discipline, most organizations use a progressive approach to discipline. This means addressing breaches of discipline at an early stage through warnings. And then, if there is no improvement, using more punitive measures, culminating in termination. Disciplinary processes in an organization will normally involve setting rules, standards and targets based on expectations of what is reasonable from each employee, monitoring for compliance to rules, standards and targets, investigating reports of non-compliance, taking action to resolve non-compliance. If remedial actions fail, imposing sanctions, using a series of warnings about the effects of non-compliance, and if no improvement, or if serious, terminating the employee. A manager needs to respond quickly to situations, but also take measured judgments as to the right approach to use. Consider this short example: a valued and generally reliable employee is late for work on a number of occasions, causing difficulty for other staff who have to provide cover. You talk to the employee on his own, and he reveals that he has recently split up with his wife, and he now has to take the children to school on the way to work. You agree a temporary adjustment to his start and finish times, and he undertakes to make arrangements for school run cover, which solves the problem. You decide that formal disciplinary action is not appropriate. In this situation, the manager exercised her judgment and determined that no formal action was required. By implication then, as a manager you will need to make such judgment calls, and to use the available systems and processes for managing discipline, as structures and support for enabling you to take the right decision at the right time. As we have seen, managing discipline in the workplace is a fundamental requirement for our manager. Your organization will already have some, or possibly a wide range of policies and procedures, to help you manage discipline at work. Managing discipline is not something to be left to HR to handle. It is a responsibility that all managers must take on, and depending on the nature of the workplace, will require more or less of your time and attention. Additionally, how you approach discipline will depend on your personal approach to management, your management style and preferences. Importantly, a failure to apply discipline in the workplace can have serious consequences for you, your team and your organization. There are a number of activities to complete for this unit. Take the time to complete these in your manual. In this way, you will better learn from and retain the knowledge covered in this unit. Many thanks for watching this lesson. Want to learn more? Click on our website to view our range of courses on human resources management.